All right, fine. So I messed up. Wrong banner. There. Poof, it's all better.
All
So
right.
many steps.
Happens.
Welcome to another Thursday night edition of Real Monsters. I'm your host, SK Barrett, and joining me is the ever lovely and talented Wes Habrick.
Hello, hello, hello.
And
Are
tonight
here.
we are talking about uh, really twisted shit.
Yeah, I am not sure what irritates me more about this one, the MLM part of it or the sex cult part of it. Seriously.
Well, I have to admit, it's a unique approach to mix those.
Yeah, that is true. Very true.
But in a formal way, so many cults have a multi-level type structure to them, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely do. But and these guys next to Scientology are probably the most brazen about it
Yeah.
that I think I've seen. Uh, yep.
So before we dive into that mess, let's talk about this week in crime history.
Dun, dun, dun. Just a few news things from over on our Facebook page. The first one that we had in there for the week was the Philly pharmacy robber who hands a demand note to the cashier saying, "I'm sorry, I have a sick child." Um,
Who needs cash?
yeah, that was kind of my reaction to it too. It's like I don't want to heap praise on this guy, make him some misunderstood folk hero until A, we find out that it's real that he had a sick kid, if we
Right.
found it. But, I mean, and then, you have all those people who were blowing that up beforehand. And apparently, there's been a couple other robberies around that area where people were using that same sort of ruse, too.
Yeah, I'm guessing he's no Jean Valjean.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But, yeah, a Lubbock, Texas man charged with capital murder after he stuffed his girlfriend's seven-month old toddler inside a backpack and left her in a car while he was at work.
What?
Yeah, yeah, that's one where you look at it and just the excuses he had. I don't think anybody could be that stupid. He tried to say that he didn't know it would hurt her when he threw the bag in the back of the car, too. In the trunk, that is. But
Seven
I don't,
months.
yeah, 7 months old.
Stupid sick fuckers.
Oh, definitely. Um,
There's a lot of stories that go around about idiot young parents doing stupid and cruel shit to their babies.
it's sad, man. But I would, have you seen any updates on the 26 bags of body parts?
I have not.
I haven't either. I'm curious to see what they would find with that, although I would wager a guess it's probably a cartel dumping ground,
Right.
but not totally sure on that. Florida woman accused of hitting man with BMW and then trying to pee on the deputy that arrested her.
Listen, ladies, you're just not equipped for that.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
leave it to the guys to piss on people, literally piss on people. It's just gonna go down your leg.
pretty much. And then you get charged with assault on top of it.
Right.
Um, let's see.
But then again, when you're, on drugs and drunk, I'm sure the logistics and physics of that procedure are probably beyond your grasp.
It will, yeah, most likely. Let's see. Pot shop burglars nab over 100K in cash at a Chicago heist. So, my state. I guess people are enjoying the legal weed.
Yeah, in our state, they have, and I don't know that this is a requirement or if it's just smart business, but you have to, they have like it's like a club. You got to go in and meet there's like a bouncer guy at the door,
Oh, uh huh.
and they regulate how many people come in at any given time, and you got to present ID, and they scan it.
Hmm. Yeah, that part doesn't sit well with me whenever the government has me on a list of some kind.
Yeah,
But especially when pot's still illegal at the federal level. Um, but at any rate, a woman who posed as boy to sexually assault up to 50 girls is jailed over in the UK.
wow.
Yeah, not something you see all that often with transvestites.
Nope.
Uh, let's see, there was a third teen who was busted in that fatal beating of a Bronx man over $1 last Christmas Eve.
Right?
Um, and that's just sad.
Yeah, was he
It,
beaten because he only had $1?
I think so. They tried mugging him and they beat him in the process, and it was all he had on him was a buck.
Jeez.
Um, former Miss Florida is heading to prison for stealing her elderly mother's SSI checks.
Woo.
Yeah, well, I
All the
just
beauty's
don't.
on the outside on that one.
Pretty much. Don't let the veneer fool you, folks. She is evil.
Right.
Man, going down this list. Passenger allegedly tried to storm cockpit and attacked a flight attendant and police. Believe that was in the Southwest somewhere. Not sure of a motive on that.
Was it a plane in flight?
Yes,
Or,
my
yeah.
understanding, yeah, it was.
Oh my God.
Let's see. The Bristol County Sheriff up there in Massachusetts, Michelle Carter, to be released next week. And for those who might not remember who she was the 17-year-old who sent 20,000 texts to her boyfriend telling him to kill himself.
Oh. And what did she get sentenced to?
I thought it was involuntary manslaughter,
But
which
almost no
seems
jail
fucked
time,
up.
right?
Yeah, pretty much. Virtually none. In fact, she might have just gotten credit for time served with it.
Wow.
Man, so they tried to make it into a First Amendment case, of course, but I don't see how that's covered
No,
under free
that's.
speech.
I don't think that qualifies as free speech when you're trying to induce someone to harm themselves.
Yes, completely agree with you there. Um, oh, here was an interesting one. Israeli police raid religious cult-like group in Jerusalem. Apparently,
Oh
this
yeah, I saw that headline.
Orthodox rabbi was heading it. Is apparently some sort of a Jewish sex cult
There's
that he.
words you just don't normally hear together.
Nope. I mean, I'm not versed all that well in stuff like Kabbalah, but I wonder if there's a sex magic component to it.
Hmm.
Maybe, I don't know. I
Well,
would have to
that's
look that up.
that's a interesting tie into today's subject because if I remember right, the Israeli case had slaves and women who were kept imprisoned.
Yes, in fact, it did, and that is a good segue as well because I am done with the news
Wow, what?
for this
Oh,
week.
You'd think
Perfect.
it's almost like we planned it, except we didn't. Well, I didn't.
No, no, I didn't either.
All
But
right.
yeah,
So, for those who, um, I want to clarify the pronunciation of this organization is Nexium, just like the heartburn medication.
yep, it is. Latin letters. I'm not totally sure where he got that from, but yeah, the founder was this guy named Keith Raniere. He founded it back in 1998. And the thing was with him, though, he also had a couple of other pyramid or Ponzi schemes under his belt. And I suppose before we get into this too far, it
Yeah.
might be a good idea to define for people what exactly multi level marketing is
Yeah.
and what makes it a pyramid scheme.
Well, see, there are very clear regulations on the difference between a multi-level marketing company and a Ponzi scheme.
Right.
Ponzi, pon, the term Ponzi scheme comes from an Italian immigrant named ta-da,
Charles
Ponzi.
Ponzi. Yep.
Yeah, and his brilliant scam was, and we've seen this done. You know, in spite of it being illegal, it gets this scheme gets repeated every few years, or probably all the time.
Oh, yeah.
You just don't always hear about it. So the idea is you have a great investment opportunity, and you promise these great returns to,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get people to invest, right? And then you get more people to invest, and then you start paying off the early investors with the money coming in from the later investors. So the
Yep.
early investors are going, "Holy shit, this is awesome. I'm getting my money back."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm making money off of this, which causes more people to want to invest. The problem is
It's
it, it's
unsustainable.
unsustainable, and it will collapse every single time.
Mm-hmm. And getting into it where you see MLM without the Ponzi setup, a lot of the times what they will do is have some sort of good that they try to tell you that you're selling,
Right,
but you are actually, if you look at their plan, you make more money from recruiting people
right.
and so on and so on and so on through these levels. The problem is with a lot of these MLMs, if you get only so far in their levels of people, you would have to recruit the entire population of the earth plus a couple billion people.
Right. So, and here's one of the dark little secrets about multi-level marketing, and that is if you are not involved in the startup of the organization, as in if you don't go into the company at the first tier, you're screwed
Yeah, pretty much with that. Um,
because
oh,
they're the
maybe I'll.
ones that are going to make the money.
Oh, exactly. That's how all these work. I mean, you look at some
Right.
of them that are even considered somewhat respectable, like Amway, as a for instance.
Right.
It's how
Very,
literally all of them work.
yeah, very few have uh, any kind of longevity.
Yep.
Uh,
I was just looking up, there's a pretty interesting website on this. I think it's called Pyramid Scheme Alert. Put in the comments while we're talking. But yeah, Raniere, before he started Nexium, he had in 1993, it was called Buyer Line, Consumer Buyer Line. And
hmm,
he ended up getting about 250,000 people to buy into this, and he turned about $33 million from them.
wow.
Yeah, in 1993. And for that one, he only got a 40K fine in the civil courts. And for some reason, I have no idea why, he only paid out 9K, and the courts apparently did not go after him
Wow.
when he said, I can't afford to pay you the 31K.
Out of my 30 million.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But
Wow.
he had that one, and then he had some other bullshit MLM on vitamins after that. And then he starts up in 1998 with his partner Nancy Saltzman, the executive success processes. I thought it was a P was the executive success programs. That
Okay.
is what they called it before it became Nexium. And a lot of the people that he was getting to sign on were bigger names. I mean, he got Sheila Johnson, who was one of the creators of BET, Black Entertainment Television,
Yeah.
signed on. Antonia C. Novello, who was a former Surgeon General, the CEO of Enron, signed on at that time too.
Yeah. Surprise. That seems rather
um,
appropriate.
let's see, you also had the Bronfmans, Edgar Bronfman, who was the head of Seagram's Whiskey and
Mm.
his $1 billion fortune, and his two daughters actually got into it as well, despite Edgar Bronfman later going on the record and saying, I think it's a cult, his exact words.
Wow.
And also Anna Cristina Fox, who was the daughter of Mexican President Vicente Fox,
Really?
were all recruited. Yeah. But basically, what Rainier was teaching was he called it these seminars or programs where he would teach you to be a better you, be successful. And apparently, he had materials out there saying that it can cure diabetes and scoliosis too.
Well, see, now this is where you start um, getting into the megalomania because from what I have read, it sounds like they got some NLP training.
They did.
And
Yep.
and NLP is can actually be highly effective at behavioral modification and especially in the short term.
Hmm.
And it's very good. There are techniques within NLP that are hugely effective for a number of things, especially rapport building. And yeah, and there are some claims that are a little crazy. I don't know about crazy,
Yep.
but a little out there. Um, but by and large, you know, the founders of NLP had an overriding principle of pragmatism. Like, we don't care what the technique is, or who invented it, or how. We only care if it works.
And for those who don't know about the NLP abbreviation, neuro linguistic programming
Right.
is what we're talking about. Um, yeah, and actually, Saltzman had a background in that.
Ah, yeah.
She studied it, I think, with that. But yeah, he's getting all these big name people to buy in, and they apparently believe that the guy was a paragon of morality and of intelligence. He apparently said to these people that his IQ was 240. Yeah, which is ungodly high.
Well,
I don't
yeah,
think anybody's ever tested that high.
nobody has come even close to that. Um, and when you consider that the IQ scale isn't linear, it's logarithmic.
Uh
So,
huh.
somebody who's 110 isn't, or let's say 150, isn't just 50% smarter than a person who's 100. It's like, you know, 150% smarter
Mm-hmm.
because it's not a linear scale. So to be, what do you say, 240?
240 is what he claimed.
That's that's like impossibly high.
Let's see, some of his other claims. I was speaking in full sentences at age 1. Um, I am a concert pianist. I was the East Coast judo champion at age 11. Uh, I hold degrees in math, biology, and physics. Let's see, he had a couple others too that I wrote down here somewhere.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, that he claimed to teach himself all high school math in 19 hours when he was 13. Yeah, 13, uh-huh.
Right.
Let's see. Oh, age 12, I'm sorry. By
Oh, wow.
13,
So that's actually really interesting. Not 13 is kind of like who hasn't done that?
uh, let's see. By 13, he had learned 3 years of college math and several computer languages, which in reality, he had an education from the Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, where he did manage to graduate in 82
Yeah.
with a degree in, I think it was just math, but he did also study some physics and biology, but he apparently only skidded by the skin of his teeth
Mm-hmm.
with those classes. So, right there, you've got your grandiosity, your narcissism.
Yeah, stupid public records getting in the way of a good storyline.
But, oh, yeah, it's just, hey, man, this one there's so many different rabbit holes here. But, yeah, so he, fast forward, I guess, to 98, he starts the ESP programs, starts recruiting people.
And the
And
ESP is what?
the executive
Oh, that
success
one, yeah. Right.
programs. Yep. And he gets those people that I mentioned. And he also manages to get Allison Mack, who she's pictured there. She's the actress from Smallville. So a pretty big name there.
Right.
And she will also factor into a lot of the brooding sort of psychosis with all of this too. Um,
Hmm.
let's see, they were recruiting more and more and more people, and then Ranieri and Mac get the idea of forming what they called a sorority within Nexium, and it was called DOS, which stands for Dominus Obsequis Servum, which is something to the degree of master and slave,
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
translation there. Um, and they did this as another part of another subgroup within Nexium called Janus, Jness, with just women basically. Um, and for entrance there with the classes, it was about $15,000.
Oh, yeah. So that's a real a Scientology type program.
Yes.
Soak
Oh,
'em, soak 'em
absolutely.
for all their money.
Oh, absolutely. And that's not to mention the classes that are just in Nexium itself. Because, like you said with Scientology, people coming in are being basically badgered into saying, you need to take more, you need to take more
Right.
to get the full, wallop with it. And Nexium even had actually sashes, different colored sashes to give
Ah,
people throughout.
to show your rank.
Yes. Oh, exactly. Not unlike the belt system
Right.
in martial arts.
Which, by
But
the way, is an American invention. The
yep, it is.
the Asians are like, we don't need belts. We just, you know, you just worry about getting better.
Penn and Teller did a fantastic episode of their show Bullshit on that. They also did a really good episode on MLMs too. It's worth
Yeah,
checking
yeah.
out. But yeah, Allison Mack was a leader in this Janus group. And then they start DOS as a part of that. Um, let's see, it was in Janus where they started the indoctrination that women are to be subservient to men. And they also started a process within this to destroy the individual's ego, which, as we've seen time and time again,
Yes.
is needed in this cult dynamic. Whether you're talking about Nexium, whether you're talking about Charles Manson, um,
Uh,
Waco, Jonestown.
right.
Um, oh,
The
Dominus Obsequious Sororium, or Master over the Slave Women,
Oh, yeah.
was the exact translation there. So, yeah, basically the way that it was sold to these women getting into DOS
Yeah.
was like having a heightened coach if you were one of the slaves, or it was like being a heightened coach if you were one of the masters. And
Yeah, and that's an interesting uh strategy. Um it's kind of like that fake electroshock uh psychology experiment, right?
Milgram, yeah.
Yeah, where so to to get the women to make slaves of other women, you put them in charge and you're
Hmm.
special, and you get all these extra benefits for doing this really shitty stuff to other women.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you get sort of these favored
Yeah,
types through there. Um, it's interesting. I was reading a news article about the prison system in Mississippi
yeah,
right after the Civil War. And one of the big things that they would do to keep the inmates in line without having to hire extra guards
right,
was
was it?
use what they called a trusty system,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
short short for trusty shooters. And basically, they just give the favored inmates a gun and say, keep these other ones in line.
right.
So,
Very similar
yeah,
thing then.
yeah, yeah, it really is. But, yeah, to give a little bit of an idea about some of the very cosmopolitan people that were brought into Nexium, you have a bit from Sarah Edmondson, who was a Canadian. In fact, we have her picture
Yeah.
through there.
uh
She's the one who was made famous with the picture of her brand, showing a bit there. She was in Nexium for 12 years and she was a fundraiser. She left in 2017, but it was, her primary social group, and her husband was in it too.
Up here we have the couple of pictures of the brands that have the hidden messages in them. The initials. Um, what was
Yeah.
Vanguard about?
Vanguard is what Ranieri had his people call him.
Oh,
So,
Jesus.
yeah,
Well, I guess because
basically,
Jesus was too obvious.
yeah, I think so. But yeah, with Vanguard, he was wanting it to be like at the vanguard of philosophy,
Mm.
was his sort of rationale for it. But yeah, Edmondson was one of them who was branded, and she was a heavy duty fundraiser for Nexium. She raised millions of dollars for them. Uh,
Wow.
And her way of getting in for it was a 5-day course in Vancouver, $2,000 deposit. Um, it was described at that time as self help to evolve one's self understanding, to be a more optimal version of yourself, is the way it was pitched. The first class that she took was called Rules and Rituals, Rituals in the program there.
Hmm.
Um, and you got, through all those others. And she says, every time I took a training, I felt better.
Mm-hmm.
You sort of get in, that self-reinforcing effect there.
Well, yeah, there's probably for sure a dopamine element and possibly even shit, what's the chemical? The running, the endorphins.
Serotonin,
Endorphins.
yeah, those two, definitely.
Yeah.
Especially when at a lot of these other classes, what they would essentially be doing is grilling you to reveal your darkest psychological secrets too.
Yes, which wasn't just for therapy, was it?
No, again, taken right from Scientology's book, he just didn't use an e-meter, you
Right.
know?
No, but I mean, so those deep, dark secrets, which you feel, unburdened by confessing, and this is something religions figured out thousands of years ago that confession feels good, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well,
Catharsis.
yeah, well, one of the other things religions figured out a long time ago is those secrets can be very valuable as leverage.
Yep. They can, and that was where when Edmondson got her admission into DOS, she was forced to put up collateral, is what Ranieri called it, which included nude photos of her and other things too. Like she had to write a letter to her family that basically trash talked all of them,
Wow.
and things like that they were holding on to literally as collateral if she were to leave the group.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean that's a big thing for them.
And
And
let's be clear on another thing. Um, these women who were in the DOS, who were branded, who were slaves, I mean, literally kept in prison, some of them for years. Um,
hmm
this is not BDSM.
no,
This is outright slavery.
yes,
BDSM, by the way, which is I know so little about it, but I know enough to know that it's not 50 Shades of Gray. There's you can't be a control freak and call yourself a dom. Oh, I mean you can, but it's not a real dom. There's there's training involved to be a dom and a submissive. And there's, it's a whole hierarchy of training, although not expensive like this bullshit.
yeah.
But and it's not training you. It's training you how to be how to be good at this BDSM stuff. Because it's a very nurturing and loving arrangement to be in when it's done right. And
It's also, I think, much more nuanced than what
yes,
we're talking about here.
yeah,
And
this asshole just wanted a lot of sex with different women and wanted them to have no choice in the matter.
right, and that's the big thing there too between real consenting BDSM and this. These women were not. They did not, of their own free will and accord, opt to be branded with his initials.
No.
Which, if we could bring that photo that has the brand highlighted back up,
Yeah, hold on. I have that one.
it's not just his initials in it either. It
Right.
actually has AM in there
Right.
for Allison Mack. And in fact, there's been a couple of reports. The source that I read for it was the Hollywood Reporter
Mm-hmm.
that said that Mack was actually the brains behind getting them branded.
Really?
It was her idea, yeah. And I guess Rainier just liked it. Um, which A is actually his middle name too, Keith
Uh,
Allen Rainier. But yeah, they did not opt for, anything like this. And Edmondson, if you look at her story, she says that what she thought it was going to be was something more akin to a tattoo on her ankle.
oh, yeah. No, I mean, look how deep that is.
That is about 30 to 45 minutes with a soldering gun on
Oh,
their
so
skin.
they didn't have like a branding iron where they could just go and be
No,
done? It
no, this
it
was
was
not an iron.
carved?
Yes, with
Jesus.
with basically a soldering iron. They said about 30 to 45 minutes for each brand, and you had about 50 women who would have undergone this, all at Mac's house in New York.
Wow.
Which, by the way, the person who did the brand was a doctor. She was
Yeah.
an osteopath, but apparently she's still being allowed to practice medicine after this.
Really?
hmm I guess
Wow.
they're investigating her for something, but she still has a license to practice in, I think it's California and New York.
Wow.
But yeah, you get into this with DOS, and you have each little group that they called it
Yeah.
of slaves responding to a master. And they would have to do just the most outlandish things with that. They had a rule with it, for instance, that they had to answer within 1 minute if the master sent slaves a text.
Hmm.
That was one example. And if they didn't, they would have to be punished on video, um, usually like doing something sexual to themselves, and they would send it to the master, who would, in essence, forward it up the food chain from there. So I'm pretty sure it was that the masters themselves were slaves to Rainier.
Right.
And, that's how you
That's
have
how the
the
pyramid works.
pyramid. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, they would have to do, stuff like that. Oh, and to give an idea of how much money Edmondson brought in, she
Yeah.
said about 2,000 members who each paid $300 to $10,000 for a workshop and a seminar.
Wow.
So yeah, you're looking at serious cash she brought in.
And the reward was to be tortured with a soldering iron.
Yeah, that was it. And there's a rather interesting conversation in the record about this that gives a lot of insight, I thought, into the branding iron. Sorry, I'm just flipping through here. It was a conversation that Mac and Ranieri had on a walk. I transcribed the whole damn thing, but now I'm having issues looking for it here.
Oh.
Too many pages in my notebook here. Okay, here we go. They are walking at about 5 a.m. on January 9th, 2017, Max says into the recorder. She starts it off by saying, Keith and Allison, timestamp, talking about branding on a walk. Keith Raniere, you guys did it and you weren't completely nude. Do you think the person who's being branded should be completely nude and sort of held to the table, sort of almost like a sacrifice?
Hmm.
Raniere, I don't know if that's a feeling of submission, and the person should ask to be branded. Max says, okay. Raniere, they should say, please brand me. It would be an honor, or something like that. It's an honor I want to wear for the rest of my life. Max says, okay. Keith Raniere, and they should probably say that before they are held down so it doesn't seem like they're being coerced. Max says, okay. Keith Raniere, we know the depth of our love through pain. Mac, right. Raniere, there is no other way in the human condition. And also, of course, videoing it gives collateral, something that they may say initially. Although my body may be burned or tortured, my love is stronger.
Hmm.
So, yeah, Raniere watched every branding.
Wow.
During the process of this, apparently the women were blindfolded and also given oral sex against their will. So yeah, you are talking about full-on rape there.
Yeah.
Um,
And is there any indication if they were sedated or not in any
I
way?
I don't think they were. I didn't see
No,
anything
no.
as far as that.
Somebody who thinks of this, they want them to be in pain.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I thought that gave some great insight into just who this guy is.
Well, the guy, but Jesus Christ, Allison Mack. I
Yeah,
mean,
just standing there
she's
like
not.
his lackey.
Well, no, it's more than that. She's not just following him around. She's coming up with her own fucked up ideas, throwing
Oh
those
yeah,
into the mix.
oh yeah, yeah. And like I said, she was the one who thought of the idea of branding initially.
Mm-hmm.
Um, oh yeah, and then with the punishment, they called it paddling. And then often they would be put in the cage too if it was bad enough.
Wow.
Um, yeah, they would have to tape each other being paddled in the nude and send to the next higher up on the food chain. His name was Lauren. There's an awful lot of players throughout this whole thing
Mm-hmm.
once you get down to it, but yeah, apparently also the women on the lowest end of the DOS food chain did not know that Raniere was Lauren's master. So they weren't aware
Oh,
of the structure either.
okay.
Yeah.
And who was Lauren again?
Lauren was she would have been about equal with Allison Mack
Okay.
on the structure.
Okay.
Lauren was the master that these women reported to.
Gotcha.
And then Lauren reports to Raniere, basically. Um, Lauren, when she was trying to sell them on the idea, it's a physical reminder of your growth, is what she said.
Huh.
But I can't show you what it looks like.
Mm.
So yeah.
Wow.
Um, a
Jesus.
nude yeah. And that whole collateral idea, a nude photo,
Mm-hmm.
a damaging letter describing multiple made up indiscretions, and then it also usually included videos shit talking every member of the family, of one's family.
Yeah, that's part of the cult brainwashing strategy is isolation from friends and family. People who would have, a different view of the bullshit that they're doing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And also isolation from the wider world as best you can,
Mm-hmm.
which that actually gets a little bit into the various mysterious deaths that have been attributed to Nexium.
Yeah, is that the picture of those four ladies?
Yes.
Good. I guess that's what it was.
The guy who has done most of the investigating on this was a publicity fellow by the name of Frank Parlato. He did PR work for Nexium early on, and then they had some sort of a break where there was a lot of acrimony between the two.
Yeah.
And he just decided, I'm going to go investigative journalist on your ass.
Right. And having
And
been on
look
the
at it.
inside, it's a lot easier to know where to dig.
Oh, absolutely. And that's exactly what he did. So he investigated the deaths of these 4 women. The first one, shown on that far side there with the glasses on her head,
Yeah.
was Kristen Snyder. She was 31, moved from Kentucky to Alaska in 1991. She was pursuing a career as an environmental counsel, counselor, consultant, something like that over there. Um, by all accounts, she was happy and well
Adjusted.
respected by, yeah, well adjusted too. And she ended up finding the Executive Success Program in 2003 in Anchorage. And she apparently went there with her wife at the time. And at various times throughout this, the Nexium people were literally forced to drag her out of the meeting room where this was taking place.
The wife was?
Well, the wife was there as sort of emotional support for her,
Okay.
but the Nexium people, the people who were putting on the seminar, were forced at various times to drag Kristen out of the room
Why?
for these outbursts. Apparently, she was saying several times, in fact, that she was pregnant with Keith Raniere's child
Oh.
under what was a very questionable sexual experience for her. Because, A, she's a lesbian,
Right.
and B, she believed drugged when
Ah.
when Raniere put the moves on her when she had gone to Albany for a class. But she was found the day after this this class. Well, she wasn't found. I should rephrase that.
Okay.
Her car was found the day after this class with a suicide note in it by a sort of lake up there in Alaska.
Okay.
And she was never found, neither was the kayak that she supposedly rolled out to the middle of the lake and sank
Hmm.
as, her way of killing herself. Um,
It said that in the. It said that's what in the note. It said she was going to do that.
it didn't say specifically that she was going to do
Okay.
that, but it did say, I'm going to kill myself. And they actually ended up taking the note to some handwriting experts, which I'm not sure why they didn't do this sooner because it was like 2016 when they did.
Mm-hmm.
And the handwriting expert couldn't definitively say that this was Kristen Snyder's handwriting in that note.
Wow.
So the note may very well be bogus.
Right.
But they found her car after witnesses said she was forcibly removed from the class.
Sink sinking a kayak is not an easy thing to do. They're really, really designed to not do that.
Yeah,
Because I
yeah,
mean, even if you punched a big hole in the bottom, it's got enough buoyancy to not sink completely.
yeah. There's that fact, and then the other fact that people who are seasoned in working in this area, in
Yeah.
this wooded area,
Yeah.
they have said that when there have been bodies found out there, they were found pretty quickly.
Mm,
When there might have been somebody in the woods who got lost
right.
and ended up there and drowned. They've been found pretty quickly. But this one, they apparently did everything they could. They never found traces of Kristen herself. They never found traces of the kayak. And they never found traces of an oar.
Yeah, how do
So,
you think that?
yeah, they never found any of this, but they still ruled it as a suicide. God knows why they didn't even have a body.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Hmm.
and come to find out, she was going to have his child. There's quite a few people involved in this who think that she's still alive, too.
Oh, really?
Kristen Snyder, yep.
You know,
Parlato's
you
one of them.
know, that does fit that kind of uh, cult leader mentality, right? Because he would see that as his asset,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely. He would see it as leverage, as collateral,
Well, no, but I mean his
almost.
property
Well, yeah, that
and his
too.
legacy.
Yeah,
That's always big with those assholes,
that's true. They try to look more long-term grandiose.
right?
Um, yeah, she actually had taped a convo with them too. Oh, I'm sorry, that was the wife of
Oh,
Kristen Snyder had taped a conversation with Raniere and other higher ups about her, where he said in '09, quote, I've had people killed because of my beliefs.
Jesus.
Yeah. And they never investigated that as more than a suicide. And then you go to the second death that's been tied to Raniere. It was a girl by the name of Gina Hutchinson. Let's see. He was to Parlato was talking to a PI a bit about that. The PI said that he had heard a bit about her suicide in the 15 months he was employed by Nexium.
Yeah.
And she had a very, very strange manner of death. Her, first of all, the first real red flag was that her COD, or cause of death, was from a gunshot wound from a 20 gauge.
Oh, that'll mess you up.
Yeah, that she reportedly bought this right before she was found dead at a Buddhist monastery in upstate New York. But the first thing there that's weird, you have a woman who's going to shoot herself in the head. You do not honestly see that often at all as a method of suicide with
Right?
women.
No.
You know, I mean, they they usually go the way of, let's say, slitting the wrists or pills.
Right.
They want to leave a pretty corpse, is what a guy who's an EMT friend of mine said.
Ah,
Uh, but then the other side of that too, if you're going to shoot yourself in the head, why go with a long gun?
right. It's very unwieldy for one thing.
Yeah. Well, and even in the position that she had it, which when they found the body, she was wearing a zip up hoodie with the rifle sitting on her chest as she was just laying flat on the ground.
No, that's not how it works.
Well, they did a reconstruction of this with somebody of a very similar body type,
Yeah.
and they found that in order to get that trigger, she would have had to have used a branch or something to extend her reach.
Toes are often used, but if she had her shoes on, that
Um,
rules that out.
yeah, and as far as I could tell, um, there wasn't any evidence of her looking for something to use as a reach when they found her. Um,
And why go to a Buddhist monastery to shoot yourself?
they said that that somehow had a emotional tie with her.
Hmm.
That she, I guess, was studying Buddhism before she caught up with Raniere and his cult.
Okay.
Um, and come to find out, we also have motive on her. And this was shortly before she committed suicide was when Raniere was trying to woo the Bronfman sisters. We had briefly mentioned Edgar Bronfman,
Right?
the Seagram's guy. Well, his daughters were in Nexium.
What? He let that happen?
Yeah, her daughters, Claire and Claire and her sister, the heiresses as they were called. Raniere was trying to woo them, trying to sweet talk them.
Mm-hmm.
And then in October of '02, you have Hutchinson coming out and saying that Keith Raniere raped me when I was 14.
Oh.
So, and then the location itself where she was found is only about an hour and a half from Raniere, by the way,
Mm.
driving from Albany to basically upstate New York. So that's another one, they ruled it a suicide and nothing ever changed with that.
Wow.
Hmm. Oh, in
It's
fact,
just it's just so easy. You can close a case out really quick if you call it a suicide.
oh yeah, yeah, they don't look for anything else after that.
Yeah. And the thing that everybody who stages a suicide, a fake suicide, they think what they don't understand about the the when a bullet goes through the brain, the body just switches off,
Yeah.
right? So you just if say let's say you're standing up, like in this case, she would have had to have been standing up, right?
Yeah.
Or was she laying down? She shoot herself laying down? That's weird, but
Well,
maybe.
she did.
Okay.
That's what they said, is that she was laying on her back with the gun zipped up under her hoodie
Hmm.
with
Well,
the
yeah.
the rifle pointing up.
Well, it's very prominent with a pistol though, is that um, people who are, you know, suicided,
Yeah.
they're found with the gun in their hands. But that doesn't
Yeah.
happen because the body just switches off and everything just drops,
Uh-huh.
right? And
Oh,
you don't hold on to anything. You can't. There's no muscle control to hold on to anything.
no. No, not at all.
So the gun would fall straight down from wherever it was held.
Hmm.
So yeah, I don't think I've ever heard of anybody shooting themselves laying on their back.
I hadn't either, but I still just find it so weird that you would go with the long gun at all to do
Absolutely,
that.
absolutely. I mean, if you're going to, I mean, people who shoot themselves with shotguns already own them.
Yeah,
They don't go to the store and buy one to shoot themselves.
right, which is what the official counts say that Gina did.
Yeah, but
But
that's bullshit.
yeah, I mean, her sister says that she doesn't believe Gina would have chosen such a violent way,
Yeah.
even if she could have reached, the shotgun. Um, but yeah, her sister also described having seen Keith Raniere in bed with her when she was 14, which Gina
Wow.
was 33, by the way, when she killed herself. But yeah, she described seeing it and Raniere escaping out a window
Jesus.
at the time.
I mean, 'cause what? He doesn't have enough captive women?
Apparently. Well, I mean, this would have been before DOS, but
Mm,
um, it would have been late 80s, if I
okay.
put that right. If she
Well,
was 33 and
that's even
02.
before Nexium.
Yeah, yeah, but it definitely speaks to a history of pedophilia that he had,
Right.
which that is a good question that Deadman asks, if there was any evidence he is friends with Epstein. I am not sure, but being as this guy knew the Dalai Lama and a bunch of other big name people, I wouldn't put it past him. I mean, I personally didn't see any evidence of that, but it definitely doesn't mean it's not true. He very well could have been connected with Epstein.
Well, let me do a quick. I'll do while you talk about the next one. I'll do a quick search, see if there's anything comes up as a connection.
But I mean, yeah, the sister also said he used his teachings to justify pedophilia. It gets into some quotes from Rainier. He says, sometimes children, oh God, I can't read my own damn writing. Sometimes children are perfectly happy with it. In speaking about child rape, that's what he said. Why can't age of consent be 12? He also says.
Jesus.
Oh, and get this. One of his longtime followers sent him an email saying, quote, you can have my daughter. And the girl was 15.
Wow.
Another quote from that email, you are what I want for my daughter.
Yeah. So here's what the only connection is between Rainieri and Epstein would be through the Clintons. So, but there's no evidence that they had direct contact.
Oh, wow. So the Clintons like took one of the executive courses? Is that it?
I don't know exactly. I just looking at headlines,
Oh, wow.
but they're
But yeah, even Roger Stone was implied by Nexium briefly.
wow.
So yeah, that shows you the caliber of people in this situation. He said that he didn't think Kay Raniere was evil, but he called him financially corrupt.
Well, in what sense was he not corrupt?
Well, pretty much. I mean, you have to understand that the Roger Stone sense of morality on
Yeah,
anything is basically not existent.
right.
So, but he also called Keith Raniere a haughty and a know-it-all who wouldn't shut up. He
Yeah,
says that
what
Raniere.
the thing a know-it-all hates is another know-it-all.
Well, this is true. This is certainly true. But yeah, he says that they went through about $66 million of the Bronsons' money.
What?
Yep. Rick Ross, the cult expert, actually puts that number at closer to 100 million that they went through.
Wow.
And
That's some spending money.
oh yeah, and they blew through it too, considering the amount of property, especially that they had. But let's see.
Yeah, and it's not your money. It's easy to spend,
Oh yeah, always. It's kind of the story of life in this country, it seems
right?
anymore. But yeah, the last two deaths on there were interesting because they were both cancer. That
Okay.
is Barbara Jeske and Pamela K. Fritz. They were both higher ups in Nexium, and actually two of them lived with Raniere for most of their lives in Albany, part of his so-called inner circle in the Knox Woods subdivision of Albany. And Raniere had lived there for about 30 years, but they spent their last days with him, and they both had a form of cancer. And there were quite a few others actually in that house who had cancer too.
Really?
To the point where they thought that maybe this is statistically significant.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, they worked for
I
him, they
mean, I
slept
mean,
with him.
so far, we don't know how to really cause cancer in people deliberately
Yeah.
because
Yeah, I mean, we
I
don't.
mean, we know about a lot of things that can cause cancer, but we don't know anything that will, I mean, outside of radiation poisoning, we don't
Yeah.
know anything that will cause cancer.
Yeah. And absolutely. And it's interesting because one of the other women who developed, I think it was ovarian cancer,
Hmm.
saved part of her hair from this time in her life. Because Raniere apparently also had a fetish about women's hair. He would basically never allow them to cut it
Really?
be- because he said it's the seat of the soul. And if you do cut it, you have to
Really?
make, yeah. And if you do cut it, you have to make special arrangements on how to store it. So,
Jesus.
I mean, as you know, hair is one of the best storage mechanisms for
Yeah,
chemical
absolutely.
information.
You
So,
can get a lot of history out of your hair follicles, your hair
yep,
strands. Yeah, your chemical consumption and exposures are recorded like like sedimentary rock,
yeah,
right?
and
Just
basically,
kind of like just the layers of the different chemicals you're exposed to, and judging by the rate of your hair growth, they can tell pretty accurately how long ago different things happened.
oh yeah,
So I
it
keep my hair
definitely.
short.
Well, that works. But that what they found in the sample that they tested at an independent lab
Yeah.
was an overabundance of bismuth as one of the metals. And then they found another one as well. I was just looking for it. But they said it was a common ingredient in rat poison. And being fed, rat poison over a very long time oh, it was barium. I'm sorry.
Oh, barium.
Barium and bismuth. Both the levels were significantly above normal, and both of those are actually tied to rat poison.
Hmm.
So there's a chance that he was poisoning them as well. But, even
But
if he
why?
didn't,
But I mean, that seems counter to you know, his hoarding intentions, right?
yeah, one would certainly think so from the psychological view of that. Unless he saw some way that he had to get rid of them. I know on a few of them he was executor to their wills.
Oh, if he was after their money, sure.
So yeah, that could definitely lend to it. But
Well,
yeah.
one of the things he was convicted on was, um, forging checks for
Oh
one of
yeah.
his top people after she died.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, and that's one thing we should stress here. With all of these murders, Raniere has not even been tried or indicted on murder.
Yeah.
But he hasn't received a sentence yet, but what he has been found guilty of was racketeering, sex trafficking, forced labor.
And we don't know how long he's going to serve.
Not yet. They were saying, I think, sentencing this month
Okay.
sometime. We will definitely keep you posted on that on the Facebook
And
page.
are other top people going to be facing a judge?
Um,
Like,
Allison Mack, I'm trying to remember if she was sentenced or not. I think Claire Bronfman, is facing 2 years for her role.
okay.
And Allison Mack, I can't remember the exact sentence with her.
But she has been tried as well?
I thought so.
Okay.
Um, I'm just looking that up as well while we're doing this. Oh, she pled guilty
Okay.
on her end. So, yeah. For recruiting women into Nexium. That was back in April when she pled guilty.
So, what's the Catherine Oxenberg connection here?
She was another actress at about Allison's level in the public eye.
Okay.
And, beyond that, I didn't think she was a very big player in it. Beyond her being one that they were probably trying to recruit for the publicity of it. But,
She
yeah,
she wrote a book though. It looks
yeah,
like.
she was one of the branded women along with Sarah Edmondson, which Edmondson was one of the first to speak out about it. But to be fair, Forbes in their 2003 portfolio or profile, not portfolio, of Raniere called his organization a cult.
Oh.
And that was, yeah, about 16, 17 years ago. And that's one thing that's also kind of weird about this. Finding reliable biographical information
Yeah.
on Raniere is kind of hard. About the only thing that I could find was that profile in Forbes. I mean, sure, if you go to like Wikipedia and stuff, but that never passes
Right.
muster as a source. So that's why I won't use it.
Right. Right. So yeah, he's a big fat liar. So, uh, if you haven't actually really done much, you don't leave much of a trail.
Yeah, yeah, this is true. I mean, about the only other notable thing with him was that his dad was a Madison Avenue ad man. He was,
Oh man, makes
born
you
in New
wonder how much
York.
he learned out of that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sure. Which in turn they learned from studying things like Nazi Germany,
It's
studying
interesting.
propaganda.
It's interesting that they didn't try to turn their organization into a church.
Oh, yeah, that is. I wonder why they didn't go after tax exemption.
I don't
They,
know. Yeah,
they
tax.
followed the Scientology playbook as we were pointing out, but yeah, that's a good question.
I mean, Manson never had an official organization. Uh, he was too, scatterbrained for that. He
Yeah.
he he just he was so small potatoes that if they hadn't done the murders, nobody would have ever heard of him.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, they wouldn't have. But
Unlike,
yeah, that is.
you know, and Jim Jones, he had a church,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of these megalomaniacs, you know, use religion as their recruiting tool.
I wonder if Raniere would have feared that if it had a church label, he wouldn't be able to recruit the way that he did.
I don't know. It works for Scientology though, doesn't it? They've
Yeah, I
done
mean,
pretty
it
good.
definitely does. But if you're appealing to people in like the business world for business coaching,
Mm.
I don't know how
Oh,
serious they
right,
would,
right.
you know,
And that's
take
where the
you.
big money is.
Yeah, yeah.
Corporate gigs.
Oh, yeah. I was looking at what some of them got paid. For a lot less time, they were getting paid up to 100 grand by some,
Yeah.
so-called business coaches.
Right. And even just speaking gigs at conferences and shit like that pays decent buckos. But you're
Oh,
right.
yeah.
Nobody wants a Scientologist talking to their organization.
Right. Yeah, the religion part of it would keep, I would think, most business people out
Yeah.
as far as that goes. Although tax exemption would be pretty damn attractive to them.
Yeah, they probably kicked it around.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure they did. But
So has the organization, you know, gone away?
no, the organization is still out there. In fact, you can go to their website, which is kind of funny in a way. I just got to bring up the exact address again.
It's not NXIVM.org.
uh, I'm sure they already bought that. But yeah, Nexium multi-level marketing company. Did the Google on it right now.
That's crazy.
Man, where is their site? So I'm pretty sure they are still operational.
In reading up on some of the uh, charges against Keith, um, and it's really hard not to call him Keith Richards, by the way. Just
Yeah.
the KR thing. Um, Apparently they had a compound in Mexico.
Oh yeah, that is actually where Ranieri was arrested. Was at their Mexican compound.
Oh, how does that work? That's not really in our jurisdiction.
I'm not totally sure how they did that. Maybe they got the federales to cooperate. They
Yeah,
realized, hey, we don't want this asshole over here either.
right. Yeah.
But um, yeah, I mean, they got him in Mexico when they brought him in on those federal charges that we were talking about. Huh? Maybe their website isn't up anymore. So I am not seeing it.
Oh,
But I remember when I first wrote up the story for Nexium in 2017 for the 405, and their website was still operational. Um, so I actually went there and I took a screenshot of it because I was afraid it was going to come down. But they might be just
yeah.
operating in the
It's
back
down.
channels.
It's down.
Now that's good. They can't peddle their bullshit anymore.
Yeah, but you know what? People like this, there's people who are, not indicted and not facing charges, who are in the top echelons of an organization like this. You know what they do every fucking time? They go out and they
Hmm.
start a new one.
Yeah,
They
they
find
definitely do.
they find some bullshit product idea and they start a new one.
Nothing keeps them down, man. It's like
Yep.
it's in their blood to do this sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Jesus, when it comes right down to it, it's fucking easy money if you're at the top.
Oh yeah.
You stand up and do some cheerleading and get people to go out and buy your startup kit and sell 5 startup kits to their friends and churn through a lot of, cannon fodder level people and rake in
Hmm.
the bucks.
Man. Yeah, it just never ceases to amaze me with these how people get sucked in.
Well, they always have a good spiel. This is going to be the biggest thing since, you know, whatever. You know, we figured this out. We're going to do all the right things, and we know what all the mistakes that have been made in the past, and we're doing it right and better, and our product's better than anybody's, and it's so easy to make money, you just won't even believe it. Except it's not.
Well, yeah, there's that. I don't know. When I hear that, oh, my system can fight diabetes, my bullshit detectors sort of overwhelm all the other senses at the moment.
Yeah, yeah.
And scoliosis, too? Why would you pull that out of
That's
the
a
hat?
bizarre one to include in that.
It is. So your system of psychotherapy and teaching is going to straighten my spine.
Right.
Man.
Because a contorted spine is just a belief system, right?
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Man.
Well, I think we've ridden this horse as far as it wants to go.
I think so. And like we said, we will be definitely keeping up with this story on the Facebook page, facebook.com/Real Monsters Podcast,
Absolutely.
with any
And
updates in sentencing or new information.
yeah, and we might even add the updates to the history segment as they come along.
Yeah, definitely.
And next week's going to be a lot more lighthearted than what we've done in the last. I mean, if because it happens to other people.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
Stupid ways to die.
Our own sort of Darwin Awards on here.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah. Yeah. It's gonna be a crack up. So be sure to tune in next Thursday and listen along and laugh at all the people doing stupid shit because we never do stupid shit. It's only other people.
Yeah, and absolutely like and share the video too, if you don't mind. That's much appreciated.
Absolutely. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.